Silná hejzet. Dobre, kde sa môžem skrývať?
Okay, so I can use. I need energy.
Thank you.
Morning.
Well, good morning to everybody. Today, presently, I will be responsible for this first part of the day, of our working day. We are very happy because this is kind of Slovak day for this program. The first four presentations will be given by four Slovak students. I hope you will appreciate their presentations and it will be interesting for both sides. I am not the best of chairs, so please help me. There should be the discussion after each presentation, so please ask as many questions as possible, comment as much as possible. Don't let me talk a lot. Are there any questions? So the schedule is the typical one, 45 minutes for the presentation and 15 minutes for discussion. Nobody will force you to be too active as often if nobody is interested in discussion. I'm looking at you, Thomas, because I'm not sure whether I'm going to tell the truth. Then we can stop earlier and have coffee break.
The coffee break is a little bit later, not after.
So there is no chance to have it.
No. We will lock the room and.
Discuss and after the first. Thank you very much for coming. Ita is the first presenter. This is presentation of Manga.
So, hello everybody, good morning, and I would like to present you a little bit unique topic if it's concerned about education. Sorry. Because it's about comic books. Comic books from the Far East, from Japan. And as we know, Japan and Japanese, it's quite different from English, but these comic books are quite useful in education, I think. From my experiences too, I keep my English in check through these comic books day to day. I'm going to show you a few methods to apply them, why they are good, and what you need to look out for when you intend to apply them in your classroom in the future. So I hope it's going to be a good experience for you. So first of all, application in classrooms or in education, if we take a scale, if we take on a scale normal textbooks or textbook and comic books, so why they amount for a better way of learning. Of course, textbooks used in education and especially in English as foreign language education are necessary and are good, and I'm not suggesting to leave them aside or completely replace them. They are generic and they are constructed and made to fit the needs and the level of the students, but they're artificial, and the conversations and the models presented in them are sometimes old-fashioned and don't represent real life. As for comic books, they are multi-dimensional because they combine the pictorial elements and the textual elements, and they do it really good. They're authentic. They're content-based, so a real life situation is coming through a lot better than if we encounter a model or a situation in a textbook, and that makes it a quite good and a multi-purpose educational item. And the reasons why we should apply them, the desire. By that I mean it's quite popular. It became and it's becoming quite popular by young readers, especially by teens. So they're going to be excited about them. They're going to like it. It's not going to be boring for them. They're accessible. You can buy them. You can download them online. So it's everywhere. It's starting to get to Europe, to in America. It's already everywhere. And of course Japan, it's overflowing with them. And it really depicts real life as it is because there are stories written to have a meaning. So it's not just simple entertainment. They represent real life as it is. And of course the experience, what it's going to give to the students and the populace is it they students with different learning styles, verbal or visual, it's going to be good for them because if a situation is described, it's also pictured and it's not just in words. So it's quite good and it's appealing. What's more, it has authentic language and describes authentic culture. And of course, social situations as everything about society, politics. It describes families, family structures, school, education, everything. So, and really good, what I really like about them is the human behavior as it is described in these comics, because it's real. So we can learn from them. We can see many stereotypes. So in some characters we can see ourselves, how they behave, and our friends, and also the content of the story and the development. So I'm going to show you a few examples that is really a good tool. If, for example, we take classic literature works, they made them into manga. So if it's boring for you to read Shakespeare in Old English, here we have the new version. Also, we can connect manga to a variety of topics and methods. educational entertainment is one of them, because many of them are constructed in a way that to be entertaining but have educational content, but primary it's entertainment. Then again, there are already some mangas constructed and made to be primarily educational, and the secondary factor is just the entertainment. Also the association, as in teaching and learning methods, visual association, it's quite evident, I think. Also you can connect it to integrated learning and blended learning too. But then again, first of all, it's not a simple comic book. It's not simple. You need to learn to read it, and I'm going to show you the structure of it, why you need to learn to read it. As simply you learn to speak English as a foreign language, you need to learn to read manga as a foreign language. So I'm going to show you first the structure, but first of all, manga are comic books created in Japan, and the most important thing, it's not a genre, it's a format, it's a medium. Also, this citation shows quite greatly that it encompasses a wide range of topics. So it's not narrow, and you can find really everything and anything. As the author says, it reflects the reality of Japanese society, but in many cases it also reflects general and universal themes, thinking, and also realities. And it's so popular in Japan especially that everybody everywhere reads them. Even the old and even the characters too. So why you need to learn it is because of the visual language. These are visual clues, and you need to attain a new form of literacy. And this literacy is put in a new reading system to readers who encounter it for the first time. And you need to look out for the symbols, and you need to pay attention for the structure, because if you don't pay attention to minor things, you just gonna miss the storyline, and after some pages something happened previously and just you don't gonna know what's happening. So basically it's culture specific. It's culture specific because these symbols and cues are intended for a Japanese audience, and that's why it makes it also a form of foreign language for foreigners outside of Japan, because it's culture specific. It's made for audience from Japanese to Japanese. It was never intended for a foreign market. We just came to like it, that's all. And it's quite different from American comic books. If you know some comic books or read them, or if you were kids, maybe Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, these are American, or Tintin, some European Western comic books. The structure is different. It's a lot more complicated. And if you're going to imply them in a classroom, you need to make the students first aware how to read it, and it's quite important. What I'm going to do now is navigate you through the basic elements and structures that make it so crucial to the whole understanding. So here are some few of the elements, and please pay attention. Okay, first of all, maybe some of you know, maybe some of you not. Mangas are black and white. They're monochrome, so there's a scarcity of coloring, but this really not affects the artistic rendering and the expressiveness. So it's not a sign of bad quality as we take on a scale American widely and vividly colored comic books and manga. So that's not a problem. And this is basically made so that it's line over form and it's iconographic. And how it came to be is after the Second World War. Of course, we know Japan lost, and there was no money for color. People couldn't even buy bread, so they just left it with ink, black and white, and that's it. And it was quite good that they leave it like that. Also, this form of expression in Japan is not uncommon because here is one picture and here is a second one. These are scrolls and are made with ink, and they're hard to draw. These techniques, how the artists draw them, it's quite difficult because you just take a brush, take a black ink, and you make millions of shades of gray, black, and white. And by the way, these are national treasures of Japan. Also, what's important in manga is the emotions, the depiction of emotions, showing the emotions in a sequential unfolding. So if you look at the manga, if you read a manga, basically it's like a film. Basically, it's like a film. If you take pictures one after another and you just look through it, it's going like a film, or nearly like a film. Emotions exploding, vivid facial expressions. And now the paneling. First, it can be, and how you should read it. At first, it could be quite confusing because you don't read it the normal way for us. You read it from right to the left. And if I showed you the first picture of my presentation, the opening title, I think many of you started to read it at the left up bubble. Now that's incorrect. You need to read it the other way. So you start at right and you go left. This is because of the Japanese writing system. They write horizontally, vertically, from right to the left. And of course, in translations, if you first encounter them in English, it could be quite confusing because you start the normal way from right to the left, and after one page you're going to be confused. I guarantee you that. I try to read it that way so I know. Then again, what we need to pay attention and why it's important, there's the gutter. That's what we call a gutter. So that's the white space between panels. This is signifying the passage of time. So passage between scenes, it could be few minutes, few seconds to 10 seconds, 15 seconds. It depends on the action performed. But also there are mangas without the getter. These are collages, and these depict actions that take place at the same time, just from different perspectives, or 1 second after another. But that's not all. There are different transitions between panels. And managing panel order is sometimes quite difficult. So first of all, you have moment to moment. So from 1 second to another, or again, just in the same time, but from different angle. This example picture is second after the first panel. Then you have action to action. and it's mostly to describe action scenes. You have subject to subject. Subject to subject is that action is performed, something is happening, and it has effect at a different place, not a different time, but a different place. So meters away from you, or kilometers away from you, but the action performed is going to have some effect far away from you. Then you have scene to scene. These are actually, I could describe it as you take different pictures and show the same sequence of story unfolding, but for example, here is a train, and at once we are at top of a train with the characters, so it's jumping from scene to scene, quite in a larger steps. Also, this is used to by when a character is having a flashback, a memory of past events. For example, here we have the character when she was young, something happened, she was crying, and after that we see how she remembered it in the present, and this is especially the end of the flashback. And in flashbacks, the gutter is mostly in black, so not in white. So also, that also signifies that the action depicted didn't took in present time, but it was a memory. And then aspect to aspect. If for example, this character is going through a house, so we don't. The artist didn't depict it that he goes in every room and shows every room in the house, but he just put the character at the bottom, and in different panels just shows the room, what he has gone through or locked into. Also, some objects that fell down, so somebody was passing by, dropped something, and it focuses on that dropped item, in this case a photo. So as you can see, transitions between panels is quite difficult to master, and you don't need to learn especially the transitions in that way that you can name them all, but you need to have an awareness that what actions taking place at what time. So you need to have the check on time between the actions. Now the verbal code, the actual text, so they basically, in manga there are just dialogues mostly. If we take an American comic book or Western comic books, they are captioned. There are captions, there are illustrations. So you have an illustration, you have a square bubble, a narration, and it's just narrated. Of course there are dialogues, but everything looks more illustrated. Manga is more action. And there are also different kind of bubbles. So, and they also depict the tone and mood. Again, they are expressive, and they also express emotions. So if a character is angry, they're not going to put his or her speech in a regular bubble. So in this case, in a spike bubble. Also, there are some differences between American and Western comic book bubbles and the bubbles used in manga. For example, the cloud balloon, that's mostly in Western comics, is used for thoughts, unspoken thoughts. While in Japan, it's used for happy exclamations, and whispering is in slanted bubbles. Then again, here is the typical depiction of the thought in manga. So these are connected not with a straight arc, but with little bubbles. So there are some differences, and in some cases there are no arcs. So you need to associate the bubble to a character, but in most cases that's quite easy. So again, as I mentioned, manga also uses captions, but just to give an ending to a story or just start a story. So in between there are not really much of these captions and narrations. So the actual we see the action unfolding as we look at a film. So it's not like a documentary. It's like you go into a movie and watch a film. So in not much of the movies there are narrators. And again, there are some texts that they are not in a bubble and they're floating freely. But in these cases, we know whose thoughts are these. So it's easy. In this case, it's quite easy to put the text or associate it to a character because of the unfolding of the story. You know that he is thinking it. And again, an unusual thing, it's onomatopoeia. These are sound effects. Yeah, manga has sound effects. And mostly they are untranslated. And it can be, and it's a quite a shame because it spices more up the story. And lastly, I read a manga, a lot of untranslated onomatopoeia, and it just gives away from the experience. So it's a shame that in most cases they are not translated. These are mimicking words or imitating the sounds as they actually are. They're universal, and there's quite a lot of them. And what I said, it gives an immediate effect to the scene or the action performed, and there's quite a lot of them. This is taken from a dictionary, an online dictionary for Japanese manga onomatopoeia, and there's a very lot of them. And what's quite funny is, did you know that silence has a sound? Or somebody staring at you has a sound? Or before I didn't read manga, I didn't know. But yeah, they give a sound to everything. It signifies, and it just as I mentioned, it puts an immediate effect, and sometimes it just for fun or to humor the reader. Okay, not. What's again it's important are the backgrounds. These are called screen tones. Because if you think that manga is just done with a pen and a ruler, no. It's not too easy to write modern manga. It's quite difficult. It's hard work. I know that if an author has to put out weekly 20 pages, it's taking him a week to finish that 20 pages, which in between is not that much. But the drawing techniques and these tools they use, because they're So it's not easy. And these screen tones are, there are a lot of them. So every effect, every background, they can apply anything. Even a wall city, they don't need to draw the buildings. They just take one of these screen tones and they then cut it out. As you can see, most of this, the drawn thing, most likely I think was just the character and the outline. So the effects and shades, they were just put on or cut on, and this is how they apply it most likely. So you need to cut it out with a sharp knife, and you need to be extra careful to not to cut your drawing because you can start it all over. So it's not an easy art to make. And again, these screen tones give again emphasis to a situation or a happening. So for shock or for being happy or to be intimidating somebody or be intimidated. So again, they give effect. But then again, what's really the visual language, and you need to understand it because this is really cultural specific. These are symbols, visual cues, and you need to understand it, why it's happening, why the character has a nosebleed from apparently nowhere. Or again, the sweet bubbles too. The snot bubble, that's signifying that somebody is sleeping. So as opposed to Western comics where you see zzz coming out. Then the popping vein when somebody is angry. Or the face plant when somebody comments something and you just fall down flat on the floor. But this have just a comical effect. Stabbing, hurtful words. So if you're given a hurtful comment, the bubble is going to stab you. It's again for fun. Then the ghost, the hitodama, that's quite culture specific because this is the floating soul of a person or ghosts. And the miniature form of the characters, that's for fun. Again, also in bubbles we can see these visual language elements coming back. So as you can see, manga is an interactive reading. You need to be aware of the many elements, and by the way, this was just a portion of it. There's a lot of more, and you need to be aware of it. You need to read it and decode it, as if you're translating something from your mother language into English. You need to decode your own language, your own understanding, and you need to put it together. And this gives you a cultural shorthand, and basically these elements make up a grammar. So English has a grammar, German has a grammar, every language has a grammar. And this visual language too has a grammar, so you need to put it into sequence to make it a comprehensible wall. And it gives a logical sequence because it's after, if you understand it less or more, it's going to be quite fluid. So you don't going to have problems to read it and understand it. And as for that, the steps you need to do is, first you need to read the printed text, you need to read the graphics, and then manage the panel order. And now I would like you to read a page. Okay, did you read it? Okay, I was not mocking you, but you fail. You fail because in Japan, and especially manga was designed for speed reading. So in Japan, they read it under 5 seconds a page, and that's fast. That's quite fast. You see, this is why it's important to know these picture elements because especially how this author describes it, it's like reading in Japanese because the Japanese kanji are like symbols too, and they they much like don't read the text too and the pictures. They are aware of it and just come to it, and they know what do they mean and go on. And that's why we can't read it that fast, because we need to read the text. In which way they don't read the text, they're aware of the text, and that's different. But then now, how to apply it, because I think this is a new medium, a new media in classrooms, and how to apply it. So I made a lesson plan or an activity in one possible activity how you can apply it. So to predict the beginning and outcome of a story. For this you need an uncaptioned comic strip or a manga or anything, and you can apply it at any level. So just basically give out the comic strip and form small groups. Again, you make aware your students to look carefully at those elements, at those various elements. So be attentive. You just go through it, and I think this is a quite good example of a lesson plan, because it's not boring, as you just take a text and a literal text, and it's not so raw. I think it's more fun, and of course you can learn or use comic books and manga for a lot of things to learn. And this is just, again, a few of them. Of course, it's a lot, but it's a few. Okay, as I mentioned, there are already some official books, edutainment manga, which are primarily made to be educational. One of them is the Manga Guide series. At the present time, there are 10 or a dozen translated into English, and they were designed to teach the readers about science and mathematics. So what I read from this was the Manga Guide to databases. Well, it was in quite a fantastic setting that in a fairy tale land the princess had problem to organize her data on her laptop in a fantasy kingdom. So again, it was constructed to be entertaining, but it had real educational content with a purpose. And then again, the classics, as I mentioned it. So everybody knows this gentleman, and his works in manga. So if it's too raw or too boring for your students to read, you can encourage them to read one of these, and they're going to go home or come back with a lot more of knowledge about, for example, Romeo and Juliet. So you can learn a lot of things from from these manga, especially history, religion, because they're inbound and incorporated into the story. Again, it's culture specific because mostly of the time you can learn about Japan, about history, religion, and costumes. Some of them are quite foreign. As we know, we shake our hands, they bow. And there are degrees of the bow and how you bow. There's difference how men bow, how women bow. You can learn all of this from manga too. But then again, as teachers of English, for us or for me, it's good because there are some foreign settings too. For example, if you want your students to learn about the Victorian English period, Emma, give it to them, read it. It takes place in England, Victorian period. Or then again, you have some fantasy settings, but fantasy settings as with an European background, so influenced by Europe. So there are castles or old feudal systems, how they were working, the royalty and nobility. So you can show them some examples that in old times the society worked like this. And of course you can learn about food too. So if you're hungry or you want to learn to cook or to learn to make some pastry, check up some cooking manga, and also they have some recipes too. It's okay. And you can also they have some recipes, and if we teach them about cooking, that for example in English you teach them a pint of salt or loaf of bread. And again, the school system, how it works in Japan, because it's quite different and it's described. Also the environment and the climate in the class, different values, how they teach the students, what they teach them not, and also the organization. For example, the school year in Japan starts in April. That's quite different from our regions or from Europe. Again, we can find some elements what we don't have. A cultural festival, what usually takes place in the fall. It's a school event, and they make stalls and booths to sell food to the customers. So it's a day or 2 or 3 day big event, and this is mostly the only time when the students in Japan can relax. Also, they can make a cafe in their classroom and serve customers and make some money. Again, we can learn about some problems in education and society. For example, bullying. It's became quite a problem, I think, and it's mostly unspoken. But if you give some of these mangas to read to your students, I don't think they're going to bully anybody anymore after it. So again, technology enhanced learning, how it is connected to all this, because comic books, printed books, yes, but it's everything online. So if you know your best friend Google, you put in online readers, you're going to find a dozen. So it's online. Or you can also download it. You can download programs which again work in cooperation with the internet and with various sites. Or you can buy it as an ebook. And again, there are tablets. You just take the tablet, you go to Google Shop or Google Play, you immediately going to you type into search bar that manga reader, and you're going to find a few of them. You just download it and you can read it already. So you just need an internet connection, download it for free, and you have it on your tablet. Or you just give the title and the application to the students to download it, and you can work with it immediately. And as for searching, you need to aware of some things when you look for manga, because there are some certain contents that for adults. Of course, if you teach adults, it's not going to be a problem, but you need to be aware of them. And at the end of the presentation, I'm just going to show you quickly how you can find the appropriate material that you want to use. So this was my presentation, and of course searching. This is one of the online readers. You go to the directory, you put in options, and here are the genres. So for example, you scroll over it, and also there's the description what it is about. So you just need to go through it and take out the material that you don't need, or you don't wish to have that content in your material from which you're going to teach. Or again, another site, you just go to genres and again descriptions, and you are just going to find it. So that's all. Thank you.
For introducing your lifelong passion for manga and not using it in education. Now, please, it's time for your comments, questions.
Yep.
Did you use them once in an educational background, somehow, somewhere?
No.
Too bad.
Do you have any suggestions how to use it?
I showed a lesson plan, and again what is said about the billing. So I think it's quite a problem, and you can learn a lot of it. So if you have unbehaving people who's hurting the others or trying to be the big boss in the class, give it to him, read it, and if you're going want to end up like this or see you behaving like this, so to teach them a life lesson, I think. But applying, there's a lot of methods and ways to apply it. So I myself have not, because I have not teach that long. I'm not teaching that long, but I thought about it already, how I could apply it at least.
Okay. Any other questions? Still having questions.
So you haven't used it, but have you made one comic on your own?
No.
Okay.
As I said, it's quite difficult to make, so it just be a fan comic. So I'm more into researching it. It's my hobby to read it, and I'm just a few years ago I started to go to research it more deeply, and it's quite fun, I think.
As it's so difficult to draw it, probably there is some kind of online programs or applications to make it online, like
Yes, they are. Yes, nowadays they are. So the old-fashioned or the old-school way was to draw it with pen and ink, but yes, there are programs.
So there are programs we could use. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes?
I was wondering, in your opinion, what's the advantage of mangas over comics?
It's more action, it's more interactive, because what I read from Western comics was that illustration, caption, some dialogues, then again another scene, and there was no. I'm used to manga, so it was a quite big leap in the sequence of the action. It's more interactive because you just don't need to read it, and you look at the illustration. Okay, that's it, and you go on. So you really need to pay attention and read the picture, and that's the point, that you read the picture too. It's more interactive.
I learned a lot with you because I didn't knew manga at all, and I'm not a fan of comics books. Okay, but I learned a lot. I was thinking about the students with problems that are victim of bullying or something else, and I'm not. I think the best quality of this propose, that you present to us, is not the techniques of the draw, but the message.
The message, yeah.
Because even if I can draw with high quality, my feelings in the draw, maybe to the teachers, it's important to see what the student means with that draw. And I think it's very important to us teachers. I don't know if the manga is easy to use in the class, but maybe it's very important to, especially in the students that have problems.
Yeah, the mangas I showed you about bullying, they have quite a message because I read through one and I don't wish anybody who is 15, 16 to go through that in real life, but there are people who go through that, and in it mostly there's the message in it, so it's not ending tragically, so they get out of it, and it's teaching also the students how to be strong and get it together.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, please?
Can I just say, well, it was very interesting, and for me, it's some kind of new language even, you know? You have to really learn it somehow, to read it, to get all the knowledge about it. And there's also so much background that you have to somehow acquire to understand them. And it's like, yeah, if you go to a different continent or somewhere, you also have to learn it. And I think the barrier to learn it might be quite high. But as soon as you are in it and you know it, how to read it, how to know the background, I guess it's a huge benefit. Because the more you know, the more other culture, the more languages, if we make the comparison to languages, the better it is, I think. So but I guess the barrier is quite high, and you have to be.
But with time, you're going to acquire the qualifications or the ability to read it. So I myself, the categorization for example, the transitions, I didn't know to name them. I just like I know how they function, and I could read manga, but I couldn't categorize it. And after I started my research on it, really, that's how it's called. So I didn't know it, but I could read manga. So after a time, after intensive reading, because I mostly read 8, 10 hours a day. So you're going to have the ability and you're going to acquire it. So but you need to learn it. So you need to have the desire that, okay, it is my interest to learn it because I want to enjoy it. But you're going to be able to acquire it. So it's not hard. It just takes time, but with language learning too. So.
Thank you.
My guess is that one of the challenges to using manga in classroom would be to extrapolate the results to real life settings, because it's of these barriers that Thomas mentioned. I think sometimes you could, estrange a child from the real world by using symbolic ways of expression. So the challenge for a teacher would be to make this connection between real life setting and symbolic way of expression.
That's right, but then again, as I mentioned, mangas are constructed to reflect real life. So the authors every time think about the readers, the audience they're going to read it to, and the problems they are encounter, the problems they are living with, and they reflect it. So not generic real life, but it's a reflection. So there's some truth in it. So we can learn a lot from it, I think. So it's possible, but then again, yes, it's fantasy, it's fiction, but then again, it has a lot of more reality in it, as for example, a superhero comic. And even if it's a fantasy manga, the universal truths, messages, ideologies, and thinkings, they are inspired by real life. So some cases it might be hard to apply it, but in some cases I think it's quite easy to apply it. It was satisfactory. That's all. Thank you.